to Iconic Talk. This is your community's podcast with conversations about real estate, local happenings, and all things Winchester, Virginia. I'm Mark Francis, a local realtor, broker, and owner at Icon Real Estates.
And I'm Madison Kilmer, a local realtor and part of the Icon Real Estate team. Mark and I are so excited to share everything that we love about Winchester, Virginia with you, and we want you to be informed, savvy real estate consumers in today's ever-changing market.
Yep, if you want local knowledge, you've come to the right place. Well, welcome back once again. I missed you last week, and it was nothing that you did wrong. I just was ready to go on a quick little break, and I went to a lake, and we didn't have time to get together and connect and do our show. And then the last week's episode was just a tribute to just living life, and here you are. I'm so glad that you're back. So welcome back. Yes.
Thank you for having me. Third time. Super excited to meet our guest today, Zach.
Yeah. So, but what did you do last week? I mean, I was at the lake for a couple of days. What did you accomplish in your world?
It's been boring. I've had a couple rentals. I've actually had some learning experiences with some contracts that I got to learn a lot of fun stuff.
Yep.
And then I've just been honestly working. It's been very boring.
Boring. Work is boring. Boring.
Work is boring.
It can be boring until then,
Until everything
stuff just
hits
blows
the
up.
fan,
Yeah.
and then it's like chaos for a couple days.
But that's motivating also at the same time. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'm excited about our conversation today because it's somebody, Madison, who you introduced us to.
Yes.
And you'll get a chance to share a little bit of that story in our chat with him. His name is Zach Hoops. He's the operations manager of a title company, National Settlement Services, in the Northern Virginia area. And he has some very unique perspectives of marketing and just how you present yourself and how you build relationships to just have people attracted to you of what you're selling or the services you're providing.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
he got your attention.
Yeah, I'm so excited to pick his brain. I did a follow-up meeting with him after going to a seminar, and I have so many follow-up questions, so I'm so excited to just get to pick his brain a little bit more.
Yes, absolutely. Well, here is our conversation with Zach Hoops, and I think you'll enjoy it.
Okay.
Remember? That's why I was saying don't worry about that.
Sorry, I was
Best
panicking. I was
practices.
like,
Yeah, so
do it
again,
before.
we'll record,
Okay.
and then after we're done recording, we'll do kind of our own little segment.
Totally
without you.
get it.
So here we go. 3, 2, 1. Well, here we are with our operations manager of National Settlement Services, Zach Hoops. How are you?
I am great. Thank you, Mark and Madison, for having me on the podcast.
Absolutely. We're so pumped to have you. You're just making a splash in the Winchester world here, and you're not even working in Winchester. So this is a unique one here for Iconic Talk. I love it.
I'm really excited. I believe in branding and marketing, and when you want to build businesses over the long term, you've got to have some sort of presence.
We've got high energy. We want to hear where that comes from. So before we even get started about any kind of career stuff or information that you might be able to share with us, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from?
Cool. My name is Zach Hoops. I am from the Northern Virginia area. I was born in Fairfax County Hospital, lived just south of that my whole life. Went to school Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech. Okay.
Finance and management double majors. If that,
Nice.
That's what I studied because I didn't know what else to study.
Plenty of Hokies around here.
Oh, there are a lot
Yep.
of Hokies. Lived in California for a few years, in San Francisco specifically. I'm an epic hiker. I'd be willing to wager I might be the biggest hiker that you guys have ever met. I hiked the Pacific Crest Trail,
Wow.
which goes from Canada to Mexico in 2018, and have aspirations for the Appalachian Trail, the Continental Divide Trail. I
Yeah.
love hiking a lot.
So that's the thing. I mean, people do that in a few months, right?
Yep.
3 to 4 months from the very bottom to the top, Appalachian Trail.
Yeah, depending on, but yeah.
What's
6 months.
the best trail you've been on here in the East Coast?
Ooh, the best trail. I haven't done any long trails. I would say my favorite hike is down in Jefferson National Forest is Sharp Top Mountain, the Peaks of Otter. It's like probably 2.5, 3 hours south of here. Not that far south. Just north of Roanoke. When I went to Virginia Tech, it's only like a 2-mile hike, but it's got an amazing 360-degree view. So you get up to the
Nice.
top and you can see everywhere.
Yeah.
And I would literally get up at like 4 a.m. in college and drive, hike in pitch black, be there for sunrise, get back in my car, drive another hour south, and be
Wow,
there for class in the morning.
that story right there tells how intense you are.
Oh, yeah.
That's no joke.
I love it. Yeah, so that's a little bit about me. And then in 2019, I came back to the to the East Coast and helped with my family's title company, so National Settlement Services, founded in 1988 by my father. He founded a title company. He kind of randomly fell into title, but he founded a company because he wanted to be able to bring his dog to work. That was the inspiration.
No way.
Which in 1988, which is something, now anyone can do that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
for my dad, that's what he wanted to do. So he founded his own company so that he could bring his dog to work, and we've been doing title ever since.
Wow.
Yeah.
So 1988 to now, fast forward, and here you are working the family business.
Exactly.
What did you see and learn growing up that then made you say, oh yeah, I think I'll dive into that?
Yeah, well, it's conspicuous how little my father pushed it. Looking back, growing up, I didn't even think that my father owned a company. Like, he just didn't ever. It wasn't ever a thing, and it was just kind of the water that I was swimming in. I didn't think much of it. And even when I went to college, didn't think much of it. I worked for him over the summers, like in high school. Really, in 2019, he called me. The refi boom was going crazy, right? Also this resale market was going crazy, and we were just underwater. It was hard to hire people as COVID hit, and our little title company, we just didn't have enough manpower. So he called me and said, hey, will you just come back and basically do all the paperwork that needs to be done, help with the team? And by the way, I want to retire, and rather than selling the family company, I would love to kind of talk about my exit strategy. And so that it really formed much later on, more recently. And I came back. It was kind of he called me back for the family, and I answered the call. And
just in time for COVID, right?
Exactly. And it's been amazing ever since.
So how big is the business in the company right now?
We have 11 full-time employees, so not super big.
And how do you describe and define what a title company is? Let's just dive right into it.
Right.
Because we're here for Iconic Talk. We love to talk to people who are in the real estate business and industry. And, put your hat on of just every Joe person here that lives in Winchester or beyond, that they hear, okay, yeah, I know, I've heard of what a title company, they exist, but what do they really do? Define that in a nutshell.
Great question. My answer is I usually take an approach. I say, hey, your lender, they probably help you get the money to buy the house. Your real estate agent help you find the perfect house and get under contract. The title company is the last partner to come in and actually facilitate the transaction. There's a lot that goes on under the hood of transitioning real estate, and there's a title company's job to do all the really boring work to make sure that you successfully buy the house that you want.
I love you say boring, but it is very essential though. But
it is super boring.
It is paperwork, yes. So no, that's a good answer, because you're right. It's the final concluding part of a purchase or a sale of a home.
Yeah.
And as a realtor myself, and Madison, you too, we see the full spectrum of beginning to end.
Yep.
And we like to position our clients to make sure they have appropriate people on the way who can take care of the job. So what about your title company stands out? And you're saying it's very small, so
Yeah.
all the things that go on under the hood, I'm sure there's a lot of things that can go wrong along the way.
Yeah.
So what do you guys do to stand out along the way to say, yeah, this is the place to actually go to closing?
That's a great question, and a question that, again, not a lot of buyers know about. So maybe even before that, I'll just answer kind of my next layer to answering what a title company does. Is I say that we kind of do two things. So the word title, people often think of like cars more than homes, but the title is your ownership to the property. And one of the two big pieces of what a title company does is we check the history of the property all the way back to basically when it was first zoned and platted, and we make sure that you're buying the property under the conditions that you expect. So we say title is clear, it's unencumbered, because there are all sorts of ways that title can become clouded. And we won't dive into the details, but these are important and can have huge financial costs if the title company doesn't do a good job and catch those when the buyer is buying the property. Because if you buy it and we don't buy a property and we don't clear a problem, well, now it becomes your problem as the buyer.
Right.
So I say we do that. We clear title. And then the other thing is we do escrow. You hear escrow a lot. And escrow is a fancy word for an account that we're the people that balance the checkbook, paid on time. And so it's our job to make sure that every single cent is accounted for on your closing disclosures, and then make sure that money gets to the people on time. So those are the two kind of big buckets that I say.
That word escrow is funny because, here in Virginia or West Virginia, if you're selling, you say, I'm going to closing. California, for all the people who watch those shows on television, they're like, oh, we're in escrow.
Yeah.
And I think I have a lot of clients that be like, what are they talking about? What do they mean they're in escrow? That makes no sense. But you just kind of explained it. Now you've lived in California a little bit. Is that kind of a funny difference in you thing that California has versus Virginia?
Yeah, it's really an East Coast versus a West Coast thing. They do title very differently out there. One is that they just the terminologies, but they also often on the East Coast the buyer picks the title company and often pays the majority of the fees. On the West Coast it is different. They often pre-open escrows. They can open them before we have a ratified contract. And then another interesting tidbit is that on the East Coast, title is very federalized. There are a lot of agents. So for example, I run National Settlement Services, but we're an 11-person company. We issue title policies, but we issue them on behalf of an underwriter, a really big national company. Ours is First American. And on the East Coast, that is a large part of how it's done. There are agents, so third parties. We're an agent that writes insurance on behalf of the underwriter. On the West Coast, it's very different. It's predominantly just the underwriters. There are just a handful of really big players, where on the East Coast there are lots of little players, which is just another interesting East Coast, West Coast difference.
Yeah, and so let's just think real quick about like what do you do specifically as an operations manager, and talk a little bit about under the hood. So you talked about title, making sure it's clear title, having all the paperwork going. So day in, day out, what can a regular consumer or client who's buying or selling a house expect that? What are you guys doing?
Me specifically?
Well, yeah, let's talk you specifically. Yeah, because you're here with us right now. So
Great.
What do you do?
So 11-person company. Operations manager means that I do anything and everything that falls outside of the lane of any one of our employees. So we have, marketers, sales reps who go out and find new business, and then we have the processors, title reps who really clear title, who process the work that we have going on. And then we have me. And my job is just to do everything that falls outside of that. So that could be marketing. That could be IT. That could be facilities, right? The internet goes down, it's my job to fix it. If the toilet doesn't work, it's my job to fix it. If we're hiring another processor, that's my job. So my job is just to make the machine run, which is not interesting, or that it's hard to define, and every day looks really different and every season looks really different. So in a really busy season of real estate, my job's going to look really different than a slow. But ultimately, I would say, if I had to boil it down, my job, or how I see my job, is just to make National Settlement Services the best title company that there is. And I like to think every day about how we can kind of re-envision how title works in small and in big ways to really push it forward. Because one thing about title is it's not the most cutting edge industry. It has a lot of old players. It kind of plays by a lot of old rules. There's
a lot of paperwork.
There's a lot of
I don't like paper. Just give me digital. Yeah. There's a lot.
So I'm trying to, there isn't a ton of young blood in the title industry. Right. There's more and more every year, but I'm trying to really lean into how do we make National Settlement Services the best ever. I say a lot, we're a 35-year-old title company. What's my business plan for the next 35 years? Not the next year, the next 2 years, but what do we build for the next 35 years?
Well, I love that you're saying that, because it leads to where I'm thinking we can go next, and that has to do with how did you even get in connection with any of us here in Winchester? So Madison, I'll even look to you, because I think it started with the connection that you had with Zach. How did you meet Zach?
Yeah, so I went to a learning seminar on Reels, which is something I'm super interested in, and that's where I met Zach, where he did a whole, I think it was an hour of basically just going through start to finish how you can really market on social media. And I thought that was super interesting, because title companies are not very interesting.
That is true.
I remember, I think the first 30 minutes I sat through this seminar, I didn't even know that you did titles. I didn't know that a title company is what you did. And I liked that because everyone was interested, though. I think there was probably like 80 of us in the room, and we were all interested. You had our full attention. And then at the end, I was like, oh my gosh, that's what I asked Ross, my brother-in-law, who had me come, and I was like, what does he do? Why are we here? And he was like, you can learn so much. And I just thought it was super interesting, because a big part of social media and what I've focused on is making a connection with an audience and then educating
on what you do. And I think that you did a really, really good job and set a really good example of how to do that. So then I set up a meeting with you a couple days later, and we kind of went over, how do you make a connection? How do you utilize our number one resource as business owners, which is social media? It's free, it has the most reach, and you can kind of get your point across, and you can kind of grow a connection with someone behind a screen without ever knowing them. And I thought that was super, super interesting. So that's how I found you.
So doing a seminar like that,
Yeah.
not talking about the under the hood things about title company,
Yeah.
Correct.
we're able to attract realtors or lenders or other things.
Yeah.
That speaks to your level of marketing ideas of how to integrate, a whole different segment of people into the boring title world.
Yeah.
So what did your dad have to say about that? I mean, was he on board with you going way outside of the boundaries here of title companies?
I would say that the old guard has been was maybe initially a little bit skeptical, very open to it, not don't do it, but it's a little bit of a stretch in the sales world. Most people will knock on your door, say, "Here's what I can do for you. Like, give me a chance, give me a chance." And my whole philosophy, which stems exactly from wanting to be the best title company to re-envision what title partnerships look like, is I want to add value first, and I want to add more value than anyone's ever added to you before.
Right.
Before I even ask for business, before I
Right.
even say I'm with title.
Yeah.
And then I will, as one great broker says, I want to earn the right to be your title agent. But first, I want to walk the walk, so it's unquestionable if I'm interested in your well-being, helping you grow your business. So real estate agents aren't really interested in the under the hood of title.
Yeah.
It doesn't solve their problem,
Yeah.
but will be big and help solve your problems. And that's
Building
how we build
relationships too. That's what you're talking about. The
Exactly.
partnerships, the relationships, you want to know who you're working with.
Exactly.
And in any industry, in any business, in any corporate setting, it makes sense to at least get to know who you're working with on a regular basis. And so putting a service, putting a kind of a dangle a little fruit or a carrot out there to some people and be like, hey, I can train you and educate you in something. Mm-hmm. That something happened to be social media, online presence, and all that. How did you present yourself as an expert in that world?
Yeah, well, the best way to do that is to not claim to be an expert. So I am, one thing that I always tell realtors is, hey, if you want to go from 0 to 6, I can get you there. If you're a real estate agent who's doing amazing things on social media, I never want to claim, and this is great more broadly on social media, I never want to represent that I'm something that I'm not. So I never want to come off that I'm more of an expert than I am. I only want to be regarded as knowledgeable to the point that I actually am. So I will, but luckily, a lot of real estate agents need to go from 1 to 6. There are very few that need to go from 6 to 10. So I have those people. I know those people. I'll refer you to those people. I'll get you from 0 to 6. So really, I practice it myself. I told myself 2 years ago, I just need to start making reels. I started making one every single day. And then after you make a few hundred, you're pretty good at them. And then you realize, hey, real estate agents need this help too. And what they need more than big strategies or lofty ideas is they need someone to get on their phone with them and show them which buttons to press and show them how to make these things, because that's what really stops people is the unknown of the mundane, the under the hood, the in the dirt, the weeds. They don't need someone to come say, hey, you need to build an empire, you should start a YouTube channel, you should be on every single social media channel. And that's what, when I see other social media gurus, that's a lot of that. So I'm the guy that will get into the weeds. I'll get on your phone with you, like we're going to do today. I will get with you and actually do the thing so that it is no longer a mystery and you can actually begin to learn and begin to do.
You're meeting with Madison and another agent of ours later today to just get under the hood of online social media presence.
Exactly.
So in your opinion, since we're talking about this subject, what makes online and social media presence effective? What about it to assist in promoting yourself or your business? What about it works?
Philosophically, like, you want something that your potential customer wants. That's the kind of content that you want to create. Whatever your customer wants, whatever adds value, right, is a stereotypical answer. And I kind of segment value into 2 different buckets. One is that you can entertain people, right? That's a way to add value, is to make them laugh, to make them, put them in awe, to tell them interesting stories. or you can educate them. So those are kind of, it's not all encompassing buckets, but those are kind of the two buckets that I think about. So, and then you really want to think about not what is entertaining and what is educational for you, but what is entertaining and educational for your client. So you have to empathize. You have to go the distance, stand in their shoes, say, not what do I think is interesting.
As I'm on my phone, I'm scrolling, scroll, stop. And you stop on something that is either funny.
Yep.
Or something that has content of like, oh, I want to learn more about that.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you keep scrolling, and then you bypass all the content that somebody else is putting out there. And you want to be the person that you have stuff that like, oh, anybody who's looking on Instagram, let's pick that for example, I want them to pause and stop and click on something that I've got.
And you want the person, your potential client, to do that. So this is actually really good, is a mistake that a lot of realtors can make is making content for other realtors, right? They make content that is jokes that other realtors will find funny, but their buyers might not find funny.
Don't even understand it. Yeah.
Which is okay if you want to become a true social media influencer and you want to have real estate agents and you want to figure out how you're going to monetize a bunch of real estate agents. But if you're the 99% of realtors who make business locally by helping buyers and sellers, you want to make the kind of content that is going to be either educational or entertaining for them, not for other realtors. So, I mean, I say I'm a title guy, right? I could talk about title all day, but that doesn't solve my client's potential problems, so I don't talk about that. So that's just a typical, that's a frequent pothole that a lot of people fall into.
So let's educate our audience just a bit and go down a bunny trail that could be fun.
Yeah.
So we are both real estate agents.
Yeah.
You are a title person, and obviously we're all about passive marketing and this kind of relational marketing that you want to call it, that draws people and attention to ourselves. So then ultimately, they're going to use us for the service we provide. So if you are just everyday person here in Winchester and you are scrolling on Instagram, what is it that gets people's attention? Why, when you are looking, let's just use a real estate agent because that's what we are right here. So Madison and I, if you are looking to hire a real estate agent to either sell your home or to purchase a house, what would you look for online? Yeah. What stands out of like, oh, that person knows what they're doing?
Yeah.
Because of what you see. What's the content out there that you would be looking for to spot a good agent?
Yeah. The first thing that I would say, which is like a pre-answer to that question, is that referrals are great. And anyone in Winchester thinking about buying or selling a home probably knows someone who knows a realtor and is going to get a referral. But in the modern age, I would say that you should always be fact-checking that referral. You should always be doing at least 10 minutes of your own work, Google that realtor,
right,
and make sure that they are wonderful. And
what's
that
the content they're putting
really
out
great.
there? Yeah.
Exactly. And so that leads us to social media. So everyone should be doing a little bit of due diligence on the real estate agent they've been recommended, and due diligence is just plugging them into Google. So the first thing, of course, is you're going to look at reviews. Reviews are great, but I would say, I think that social media is actually extremely important. You want to go because you want a realtor that is knowledgeable, is personable, is someone who you're going to get along with because you might be in the market for a long time. And then a big differentiating factor, I think, for realtors is what is my relationship going to look with them after closing? I think a lot of real estate agents, pay attention to pre-closing, but then don't think, hey, how am I going to keep taking care of my clients? How am I going to become and remain their real estate advisor for life? So if I'm a buyer on the internet, poking around, deciding between the few real estate agents that have been recommended to me, I'm going to look for those qualities. And for realtors, the best way to stand out in that capacity is short form video, is Reels, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Facebook Reels, whatever. That is where you can really let all those things shine. You can educate buyers, not just on real estate, but on the local happenings of Winchester, right? All the things that are going on. You can be their one-stop shop for all of the local happenings, the things they should know about in the local community. You can be their one-stop shop for how the market is going. You can be, and so I think it's really important to vet real estate agents. And of course, there are a lot of really great real estate agents who are not on social media. So just because they're not doesn't mean they're not a great agent, but an agent that is showing their expertise off on social media, to me, is the one that I'm going to lean into every single time, because they've demonstrated their expertise. I'm not just taking on someone's word. I'm actually watching it happen.
It is, you're mentioning it's a generational gap as well. There's some agents or other industries with people who are not tapping into social media for whatever reason. I think one of the reasons, one argument would be, well, the audience who is on social media is not my target audience.
Yep.
So I'm advertising to a crowd of people who, A, aren't going to be using my services, or B, don't have the money for the services that I provide. What's kind of your argument to overcome that potential obstacle?
All right, I've got 2 points to that one. The first one is actually they are on social media. If you look at the user statistics, like every generation is on social media. Yes, instead of it being 99% of people are on social media for 20 to 30 year olds, for the 60 to 70 year olds, it might be 60%, but it's still, there are still a lot of people there, and it's still free. And this is something that's super important, is there are 1,000 methodologies available to real estate agents for marketing, but the vast majority of them cost a lot of money. So the return on investment on social media is just so high, because you don't have to spend any money, especially in markets that are not super strong. You can have contact with so many of your people, either prospects, your sphere of influence, for free. Even if only half of them are on there, that is still insane ROI. The second thing I would say is, so they are on there, but you just need to pick the platform that they're on. So when agents always come and ask me, hey, what's the best social media platform for me? I always answer, which one do you like, and where is your sphere of influence? If your sphere of influence is all on Facebook, you should not be on TikTok to start. Right? Eventually, maybe you can get there. That's an ideal world. I like to be practical.
No Snapchat, no TikTok.
Right.
Yeah.
Go where your sphere is. Go where you like. And if they're like Madison and I, they're probably on Instagram. Great, then go to Instagram. But pick the channel, and don't do 6 channels. Do one channel really well, and once you have proven to yourself you can do one channel really well, then you can add more. But just go to the one that's going to be effective. So that's what I say, is they actually are on there, and even if there aren't that many, it's free. So that's not mailers, magazines, all the things you spend a lot of money on. When you got to watch your pennies, social media is still free, and then pick the one that works for you. Just go there and don't overthink it.
Love it.
Yeah, and one thing that you taught me that I took away from the second meeting was it should not take a long time. It shouldn't be, like you said, not 6 platforms. You shouldn't be throwing everything out there. I used to try to make a whole cinematic ordeal of my reels, and I realized Zach said, look back and look at what you like. What are you drawn to when you're scrolling? I'm not looking at real estate videos. When I'm checked out for the night, the last thing I want to be looking at is interest rates and the market. I want to be entertained, like you said, or I want to find people that I trust. Maybe as a girl, it might be my skincare routine, or it might be, a fitness thing. But what was drawing me to those people, and they were so real. It wasn't a whole entire production that someone put together. It was someone that maybe had just woke up, didn't have makeup on, or just was wearing a regular outfit and was just taking a selfie or taking a quick video walking down the street, and you feel connected to them because you're like, wow, that's a normal person putting out normal content. And I think you said it shouldn't take more than like 10 minutes. And it shouldn't be more than 1-2 takes. I have a horrible obsession with doing like 5 million takes.
There's something about like a little bit of bumbling and stumbling that's still endearing. You want
it's personable.
It's personable, and it's raw, and it's real. And so,
and
it doesn't have to be perfect.
I would dissect the people that I go to a couple businesses solely because of their social media, and they're my age, and I just thought it was so admirable that they had an amazing business at my age, and that's my goal. And I really dissected what it was, and it was just, you didn't feel, especially with real estate, when you're going to trust somebody with asking personal questions, we're looking at their finances, we're looking at their credit scores, their histories, we have to hear their stories, where they're at in life. It's a personal experience. And somebody, you want to be with someone, you don't want to walk up with someone that's in a full pantsuit and heels that has it all together, You want someone that you can text and say, hey, it's 10 o'clock at night, I'm freaking out, I need to talk to you. You want that connection. And I think social media is a great platform to grow it before even having that first conversation.
And I'll even answer my own question. You gave 2 points of what do you say to the older generation who isn't sure about it. Well, I can tell you this is the way the world has gone, and it will continue to go. Social media is not going away. the form of communication consistently changes over time. And if you're not evolving as an industry or as a business person or as an entrepreneur, you name it, if you're not evolving, you're dying.
Yep.
And I think that's probably the conversation you might have had with your dad at one point in time of like, how are we going to revamp your title company for the next 30 years?
Yep.
Because the last 30 years was successful. So how do we shift that? And I think you're proof in point to say it's working. Here you are in Winchester, Virginia, not a resident of here, don't really know the area as much as Madison and I might do.
For sure.
But here you are on our podcast
Yeah.
talking about something that spoke to Madison, and now we know about your title company.
Yeah.
And
I
now
love
more
it.
agents. Now you're meeting with more agents.
Sure.
And you're going
Exactly.
through.
Growing it, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to say minimal effort, but literally just from 2 meetings, and it was like, so
Yeah.
it shows the sphere of how fast you can grow if you make the right connections.
Well, keep it up, Zach, because pretty soon or later you'll plant a flag here in Winchester.
That's right.
So tell us real quick before you go. You said you recently got married. You were
did.
telling us off air here. So,
Yeah.
what does that look like in your life right now? How long ago was that?
It was only about 3 weeks ago.
Congrats!
And
Awesome.
It's been amazing.
Yep.
People have asked me like, what's been the biggest difference, and I say that it brings me a lot of joy to have said my vows out loud and to like we have them on video so I can always recall them. So they're just a good anchoring point that I can always go back to. And at any specific moment of maybe weakness or being a little lesser than the perfect partner is I now have the vows out there. So I can remember them and say, hey, I swore these things. And so this is what I'm going to live up to.
Yep, that's awesome. Well, you're an amazing person to be able to show us all of the world that you know, and being here in Winchester, we really appreciate it, and we think that you're going to, actually I know you're going to be successful down the road, and so we're excited to continue to partner with you. So Zach, thank you so much for being here, and we will look forward to hearing more from you later. So
Thank you guys so much for having me on the podcast. This has
you
been a
got
real
it.
blast.
Appreciate it. Well, Zach was full of energy. He brought his A game, and he really showed how he got our attention and how to uniquely market yourself. When he was talking about how his father positioned his company for the last 30 plus years or so, and now he's being handed the torch and be like, all right, what's
Very
next?
boring. Yeah.
You're right. Title companies are it's boring.
It's very boring.
And it's got to be challenging to try to attract new business. And
Yeah.
and I guess his target audience are real estate agents, because it's up to a real estate agent, as he explained, to pick the title company. So here we are, and he's marketing himself to us, but in the guise of online social media expert, which he's vastly talented
Yes.
in,
Yes.
knows what he's talking about, so he doesn't have to prove himself. What did you learn? What stood out in the conversation of what he just talked about?
Honestly, all around, I just think that he's an awesome person. I think he's a great representation of it. It's so much more of a relationship business than really the business you're doing yourself. I mean, like we talked about, being an agent, being a title company, it's boring stuff unless you're looking to use that service right away. No one cares. They're not interested. I think he's just a prime example of you can just be a good person, a fun, genuine person to be around, and people will be drawn to you when the time comes to need you, versus marketing your business right away is just going to turn so many people away.
Like he said, you can just go bang on doors and just ask 5, 10, 15 times, use me, use me, use me. And without the building of a relationship and getting to know who that person is, that's honestly, that is my marketing strategy. That is my marketing 101, without revealing all the things that I like to do that I explain to our Icon real estate team. He hit it in a nutshell of building relationships. And ultimately, can I share a little secret? This podcast came from that kind of thinking.
Yeah.
The part of it is saying, what service can I provide to the general public in Winchester and beyond that goes beyond just talking nuts and bolts about real estate?
Yeah.
And here we are, 99 episodes later, talking to somebody like Zach, who has a similar mentality of, we want to provide services well beyond just real estate that will allow you to understand who we are, who Mark Francis is, who Madison Kilmer is, in a way that they know us.
Yeah.
And then they trust us.
I mean, we're really shaping the future for what it looks like to be a salesperson moving forward.
Yeah.
I mean, talking about his dad's company 30 some years ago into now in the door knocking, I mean, that honestly makes me so uncomfortable to think of ever going and being like an actual sales
I have done
person.
it. Trust me.
It's
That
so
could be another.
cringy.
That could be in another
It's so
episode.
cringy.
I could give you the life of my sales, 100% commission, go knock on doors, salesperson experiences. I hated it.
Yeah.
And
You feel bad about yourself.
oh my gosh,
You feel so bad.
chalk that up. We will talk about that in another day.
For another day.
Yes, to commiserate with all of you people who do that for a living, and hats off to you, because I did it and it's hard work and it's not fun.
Yeah.
So, but back to subject, building relationships is where it's at.
Yeah.
Even in that knocking on door kind of thing, you still have to build a relationship. So
Yeah.
there's techniques in it. Which, by the way, my wife is reading a book that's basically it being an influencer, all a part of that. And so, that's another conversation that we can maybe dive into of how you are influencing people in a way to then utilize you. And what Zach is doing is influencing people in a way
Yeah.
to display a service that goes beyond just what he's making money at, which
Yes.
is great.
Yes.
I love it.
It's a lifestyle.
Lifestyle.
honestly. Yeah.
I call it relational marketing. So
Yeah.
that's really where it's at, and just another technique of that in our episode today. So thank you, Zach. So in our upcoming events in the Winchester, Frederick County area, what stands out to you, Ms.
So
Madison?
June has so many fun things coming up. I'm so excited. The first one we've got coming up is the Winchester Little Theater. They're showing their twist on the Three Little Pigs, ... kinda.
Yes. Okay.
This will be from June 17th to the 24th, and it will be a hit for children of all ages. And also, they are promising that the adults will not want to miss this as well.
Cool. I drive by that all the time, and I saw the sign.
Yes.
And it's very interesting.
It looks fun.
looks fun.
I love that. I might take my nieces and nephew. The next one we've got on June 24th at the Museum of the Shenandoah Valley is having their annual wine festival, where there will be so many fun things to do. Or if you would rather sit back and relax, there will also be live music to enjoy the whole time. You can enjoy a nice glass of wine and some beautiful scenery. And this will be held from 1 to 7, and you don't want to miss out.
Yep.
And that was June 24th.
And I talked about them last week on last week's episode for their Juneteenth thing. That was a big success. I did a drive-by and I saw a lot of cars there.
Yeah.
The day before their Juneteenth event, I went there, and their Lego exhibit is amazing. It's really fun.
They
it's really
always
cool.
have everything.
There's all kinds of stuff going on
You
there.
can't- yeah.
It was a great venue. It's a
Yeah,
great area. So
It's beautiful.
definitely show up.
And then last, on June 29th, the Homestead Farm at Fruit Hill Orchard is hosting an event of pickin' and grinnin' on the porch, where you can enjoy live bluegrass and old-time country music by the local musicians.
Oh, it's making me laugh already.
They'll be-
Picking and grinning.
Oh,
Yes.
that was a tongue twister for sure. They will be serving some of their country-style dinners from 6 to 7, which will be optional, and the music is all free. So
Awesome.
7 to 9, you can go enjoy. They just ask that you do bring a lawn chair.
Sure.
And it is kid-friendly, so whole family can enjoy that
That
event.
sounds amazing. So many things happening. The springtime is here, and we are loving the outdoors. So
Yes.
even just we can get through the rainy season a little bit here this week, but we'll be fine. And
Last night was crazy.
yeah, there's all kinds of stuff that goes on around here.
Yeah.
You never, it's gonna rain, it's gonna thunder, it's gonna pour, but
Yeah.
that's okay. Well, thanks so much for joining us on this episode of Iconic Talk. We hope you learned something from today's episode, and really look forward to sharing more with you next week, the 100th episode. We got some fun surprises for you. Remember, when you look for a real estate professional, and this really rings true, make sure they're experienced, innovative, personal, dedicated, and available.
Yes, we appreciate you spending some of your valuable time with us, and we would love it if you would take a moment to subscribe and share this podcast with your friends. You can tell them we can be found on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yep. Thanks to our editor extraordinaire, Simeon Battaglia, and our social media guru, Gordon. Until next time, think iconic.